Hello and welcome to Getaway Day. I am Mason, he is Gautam, and we're back for episode 25. We got a pretty good episode for you today, but before we get into that, if you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Make sure you let us know your thoughts either through YouTube comments, an Apple Podcast review, or just reaching out to us on Facebook and Twitter and letting us know what you do and don't like. Any feedback you could provide us helps. We are at Getaway Day Pod on both Facebook and Twitter. So Gowie, how are you doing today? How was your weekend?
Pretty good. Really psyched up for the last 2 weeks of the regular season, baseball, and ready to go.
Good deal. Yeah, it's been crazy. This weekend was just nuts. Some of the things that have been happening in the wild card races. But yeah, I think the Cardinals went from what 2.6 or 2.8% playoff or 2.8% chance of making the playoffs all the way up to 73.5. It's over the last 2 weeks, but they swept the Padres and essentially knocked the Padres out of it entirely. And then in the AL, I think the Blue Jays did a pretty similar thing, where they were a 3-point. Let's see, should be right. Holy cow! MLB tweets a lot of things in a single day. There it is. August 27th, the Blue Jays were at a 4.6% playoff odds, and as of today, they're up to 72. Like, it's just nuts. What's your thoughts on these wild card races?
Yeah, so definitely those are some pretty extreme swings. We usually don't see a team pick up 5 games in the wild card chase in a matter of 8 games, or 8 days, like the Cardinals did. They definitely took care of business over this past week, winning their series against the Mets and then the Padres, sweeping both those series. So, like you said, basically killing those two teams' chances, while boosting themselves ahead, and then getting some help as well from the Phillies, who didn't win all their games against the Mets this weekend, and then the Reds, who continued to struggle this past week. Obviously, tough opponent in the Dodgers, but they couldn't even win 2 out of 3 against the Pirates. So that's kind of on them. And the Cardinals have definitely seized that for their advantage.
Yeah, and the Cardinals did it in one of the hardest parts of their schedule, I think, this season. Basically playing, let's see, so trying to remember who all we played, but in a row we played the Dodgers, and then Cincinnati, and then New York, and then the Padres. And so we played 4 teams that were all in the hunt. I think we split a 4-game series with the Dodgers.
That's right.
Yeah, so we split a 4-game series with the Dodgers, won 2 out of 3 against the Reds, and then 2 consecutive sweeps. So we're winning at the right time, and now we're down to 14 games left, 7 against the NL Central leading Brewers, which the first game of that's going on right now, and then 7 against the Cubs, who I believe as of yesterday are officially out of the playoff hunt. Not that there was really much of a hunt going on, but they're officially out of it.
Yeah, so the Reds were in the driver's seat. Now it's clearly the Cardinals. The Reds have a big week ahead of them because they're playing the Pirates and the Nationals for 7 games this week.
Yeah,
so that's the soft part of their schedule. They really need to win 6 or 7 of those games, plus get some help from the Brewers and the Cubs playing the Cardinals this week.
Yeah, and the Reds have only one more series against a winning team, and that is their second to last series of the year. I believe it's against Atlanta. So that's going to be their toughest part, but they do have, as you said, the Pirates, then the Nationals, and then they have that one tough series, and then they go back to the Pirates. So in theory, they could still do this. They just need to lock down or hunker down and just get to work and start playing like we know they can play. They had a couple of hot stretches throughout the year. I mean, hell, from or the beginning of August, like that first week, they won like every game. I think. I don't think they went 7-0. I think they went like 6-1 to start that week. But like they can have hot stretches like that. The team is built to do that. They are down Jesse Winker, so that is a big a big problem for them coming into the stretch here. But I don't know. Do they have any other key injuries there?
No, but just in general, the offense really hasn't been playing up to the levels that they were earlier this year. So I don't know if they're going to be able to get it back on track, but maybe.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens.
It'll be
And then
tough.
The Padres. We'll talk about the Padres real quick.
Yeah.
They are a little bit of a dumpster fire, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
They're having tensions within their dugout during games, with Machado yelling at Tatis after he was kind of pouting after he didn't agree with an umpire's call. His manager kind of stepped in, took the ejection for him.
Which I would just like to point out, the call he was upset with, one, was actually in the strike zone, and two, that same umpire that day had like, I think it was 18 calls that were like 2 inches or more outside the strike zone that he called all strikes. So really, that was not the pitch to be upset about in general. But I get it though; it's frustrating, and he's trying to win the MVP. He wants to go to the playoffs. He's been kind of marketed and as the best player in baseball, and I mean rightfully so. He's one of the best players in baseball. And so I think he's just got all these expectations in his own head, and he's frustrated and taking that out in the wrong way. So,
yeah, and we've seen this time and time again in baseball history where teams that have all these high expectations that don't meet it, sometimes they can just start falling apart from the clubhouse side of things.
I mean, we saw it when Manny was young over in Baltimore, back when Baltimore was actually kind of good. I mean, they had, I can't remember which season it was, but they had a season that coming down the stretch, like he started just being a little bit of a diva. I think then also when he went over to the Dodgers for that 1 year, then he kind of had the same thing, where down the stretch of the season, he was just not hustling and doing all that. And so you see it. It's ironic that Manny is now the guy trying to pull Tatis back on track. I love to see that because it just shows growth in Manny. But
yeah, and Manny definitely has a lot of experience in different baseball season situations, and he's learned from a lot of veterans that he played with in Baltimore, like J.J. Hardy and Adam Jones. So he's kind of trying to assume that leadership position, and they need that for sure. But I don't know if it was the best for him to be yelling at him in the middle of the game, because it's just a bad look for him, right? It reflects badly on him for that to be the image that everyone's seeing on Twitter today.
Yeah, so what I will say is on Twitter, nobody's upset with Manny. No one looks poorly at Manny for that. They are pretty much all looking at Tatis. At least in the Twitter circles I'm in. But basically the key thing that Manny said that is making people not mad at him is he basically just yelled, "This isn't about you. You need to get over yourself. Get out there and play baseball. We know you're the best player in the world. Go out and play like it." Like, that's what he was saying. And I think a lot of people respected that. So
yeah, for sure. And kind of looking big picture at the whole Padres situation, there could definitely be some like big changes coming with maybe coaching staff and manager potentially losing their job if the Padres don't impressively pull it all together within the last 2 weeks of the season, make the playoffs. Because like I mentioned earlier, this team was expected to be one of the best teams in the league and make the playoffs easily, and they're really struggling.
yeah, And part of that is the Giants coming out of nowhere, but then part of it is just they've had injuries. Yeah, that's been a problem. And right now they're probably hurting the worst they've hurt all season. But that isn't an excuse for the way that they've been playing baseball kind of in general. I mean, the day after the blow up, Tatis was out in center and he dropped a very easy pop fly to shallow center just because he wasn't looking at the ball, and then he was pissed off that he dropped it. So he just hurled the ball into the infield, throwing it home to try and get Tommy Edman at home. When he had Goldschmidt at third, if he would have just like stopped, made a cup of coffee, drank the cup of coffee, maybe took a nap, and then threw it to third, he would have got Paul Goldschmidt. And he just was frustrated and just wasn't in the game there and just threw it home and ended up costing the Padres potentially like 2 or 3 runs. One for sure, but potentially.
Just at the end of the season, Tatis can just take a step back and look back at the whole season and just kind of learn from those kind of mental mistakes. And I really think he will. He's going to figure things out. He's still super young, and I definitely have faith in him putting it all together next year.
Well, same. And I liken it to Manny Machado not hustling through first base with the Dodgers. It's kind of the same thing where it just something for him wasn't going right, or maybe it was going too well. I don't really remember the exact situation there. I think it was the Dodgers were clearly in the playoffs, but he wasn't hustling it out. And then later he looked back, he learned on it, and he doesn't do that anymore. And he's shown he's an improved player. While maybe his talent isn't quite the same, I would argue Manny is a better player now than he ever has been. I think Tatis will see the same thing. I think it's just he's young. He just wants to win. He wants to be competitive, and so he's got a couple of mental lapses there that are preventing him from being the best he can be. And he's 23, so he'll be fine. All right, cool. So I guess talking about mindset, I know you've got a couple of quotes that you found here the last couple of weeks, just talking about different players' mindsets and how some of the best players in the league have just like entirely different ways of going about just their day to day. You want to kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, sure. So the 2 players are Bryce Harper and Carlos Correa, who are both having really good seasons. And I just saw these 2 different quotes in completely different places, and I just wanted to share them because they're really different in mentality. Yet they both are great players, and they whatever they're telling themselves is working for them. So Harper says, I really don't want to look at my numbers. I haven't looked at my numbers. I don't let the hitting coach show me the numbers. I don't let my friends show me the numbers. I don't let my wife show it or anything. So he's essentially saying like he's just locked in. He's just doing his thing every day, not really worrying about where the numbers are, because I guess that would be a distraction. And I definitely can see how it would be, because if you know you're hitting as well as Bryce Harper is, maybe it'll go a little bit to your head and you might be thinking, I'm this awesome player. And I mean, he does have that mindset where he feels like he's the best player out there, but having no numbers to back that up, I can see how that would be a really good thing for a player at the very top of his craft like he is right now.
Yeah, and the thing that I think probably helps him the most, not looking at his numbers, is when you're that good, you know your swing and you know your technique all by muscle memory and things. So if you're sitting there and something doesn't feel right, it's probably easier to figure it out and keep performing at a high level if you're not if you do it by feel and not say, oh, my numbers dipped that week, something must be wrong, and go and try and correct it. Maybe you just faced a really good pitcher and there wasn't actually an issue with your mechanics. So if you feel right, but your numbers are down, okay, well, next week will probably turn around. Law of averages, right? But if you sit there and you're just looking at your numbers every single day, you're probably going to start trying to tweak things to get those numbers up, and then that could ruin your swing for the rest of the year. So it definitely makes sense to me. But at the same time,
Carlos Correa is saying, I don't look at homers a lot. I look at the advanced metrics. Going into free agency, it's more about the stats that are going to project. Hard hit percentage, WOBA, OPS plus, WRC plus. I look more at that. That's the best way to help the team win. So I thought this is really interesting because basically Correa is saying, hey, I look at all the things that you on Getaway Day, the podcast, are looking at, and I value those things, and I'm actually seeing where my numbers are, and that helps me to become the player that I am because I'm targeting these specific areas that I want to excel in because he knows that's the way he's going to be valued going to free agency, and um, I definitely respect that approach too, and I've heard of other players that are basically going back and checking their metrics after every at bat that they have. You know, watching video, seeing, hey, what was my exit velocity there, and then all the information about the pitcher that they faced at the same time. So um, some people can take in all that information and they can use it to their advantage, but maybe Harper is kind of a guy that doesn't, or taking in all that information is kind of an overload and it's not necessarily helping him do anything. But it seems like Correa is targeting specific things and that helps him be the best.
yeah. Yeah, so it's just really interesting to see the differences in two of the best players in the league. And I mean, Harper has a 13-year, $330 million deal that he just signed 2 years ago. Correa's about to get a massive contract here this offseason, most likely. So, two of the premier guys with such drastically different mindsets, and they're still two of the best players in the league. So, speaking of advanced stats and just stats in general, though, Salvador Perez officially has the single best hitting season of a catcher in history, I think. At least by home runs. He hit his 46th home run today. Sure. His 46th home run today in the first game of their doubleheader. He, this season, has a 126 WRC plus, 274, 314, 542 slash line. He's got, let's see, his OPS plus, or his OPS actually wasn't as high as I thought. 856. I assumed it probably would have been higher with that many home runs. But I guess that just means he isn't really doubling a lot.
The stat heads would tell you that his season is definitely not the best catcher season of all time because his on-base percentage is so low.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what holds the OPS down because his slugging is out of this world. It's incredible. Johnny Bench, like, you don't expect that record to be broken ever.
Yeah, and then now it has been, and Sal's probably going to hit another one or two before the year's up.
Yeah, no question about it.
In fact,
yeah, let's see if
he's got a chance. He's got a chance at 50. That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Salvador Perez is our milestone player of the week. Next week, we will finally get to see a milestone I've been telling everyone to watch out for a while. Adam Wainwright is sitting at 1,999 strikeouts. So hopefully he can get one strikeout against the Brewers here this week. So watch that game and you will get to see a milestone. All right, so that's all I've got for this week in baseball. You got anything else that you wanted to mention?
That's it.
All right, so now to the main event. I didn't really touch on this at the beginning of the episode, what we were going to do today, but we always talk about a lot of these young players, your Vlad Guerrero, your Fernando Tatis, your Bo Bichette, your Yordan Alvarez, all these guys who are basically 20-something-year-old wonderkins, and talk about how good they are. But this year, we've seen a lot of elder statesmen performing incredibly well. Guys like Adam Wainwright, 40 years old, having a career year. You have Max Scherzer still dominating at 36. And we wanted to take a look at some of the best old guy seasons of the last 10 years. So Gautam and I have both put together a list of players that we're going to draft from. Did some research here, and we're going to draft a whole team. A whole team being, well, here, let me just swap the screen and put up the rules. So we're drafting 10 players, the 8 fielding positions, a starting pitcher, and a relief pitcher. Every player we draft has to be 35 years old or older in the season we're drafting him from. So we're drafting them based on an individual season and basically using that season to put our team together. A player can only be chosen once. So I can't choose 2012 Derek Jeter and Gautam choose 2013 Derek Jeter. If Jeter's taken, Jeter's off the board. You can't move a player out of position, meaning like I can't take a guy like Frank Thomas if he still played in this time and put him at third base because he never played third base. But if Frank Thomas, he's not a good example. If Albert Pujols back in the early 2000s, when he went from left field to first base, if we put him in left field but went with his 2004 season, that would be okay because he still played left like once or twice, and he played it with, wow, voice went out there, and he played it within like a year or two before. So we can do things like that just to make it a little easier because I know when you get over 35, it tends to get a little hard. So I believe I went first in the last draft we did. So Gautam, you're up first.
All right. So let's get this train rolling here. My first pick in this draft is going to be third base. And my pick is 2016 Adrian Beltray, who is 37 years old. There were like multiple good seasons past 35 for Beltray. I could have picked from 2015, 2016, or 2014, I think. But I picked out 2016 for a very specific reason, and that was that he returned to his previously very high defensive excellence that year. So he had a couple down years defensively as measured by the defensive component of WAR, but in 2016 he returned to being the second best third base defender in the league, only behind Manny Machado. He also hit 32 home runs in 153 games, hit 300, 358 on base, 521 slugging. Adrian Beltray is on the way to becoming a Hall of Famer. He's one of the greatest third basemen to ever play, and he was amazing even past 35. And the thing about Beltray that always sticks out to me is that he played through some ridiculous injuries, and the whole time he was one of the most like joyous players I've ever seen. He just was always having so much fun on the field and just messing with people, messing with umpires, and he's my first pick. Oh, you are muted. I cannot hear you.
Oh, that's awkward. I really like that pick. Beltray was he was going to be my third baseman pick as well. So now I've got to swerve. But yeah, so his 2014 season was arguably his better hitting season, but 2016 he did get his power back and hit those 32 home runs. I think he was somewhere in like the 17 or 21 home runs or something in 2014. I think, can't remember right off the top of my head.
Was a little bit. I think it was 14 home runs, but overall offensively, that was an amazing season in 14.
Yeah, but with the 32 home runs and the fact that he was back to Gold Glove defender, that puts 2016 Beltray at 37. It probably one of the better third base seasons ever. 5.5 F-WAR for him that season as well. So really good season. My first pick, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna guess this guy was on your list as well. I'm taking 2016 David Ortiz for first base.
Oh my God, yeah, that was definitely gonna be my next pick.
So David Ortiz, as everyone knows, was basically a DH for the good part of his career. He was a first baseman really early on. Whenever they were playing interleague games, he would play first base. He played first base in the 2013 World Series. So I can put him there. But at 40 years old in 2016, this is the year he retired, which, if anyone remembers, that was just an awesome season to watch. Every single team that he played gave him a gift at the end of the year. Like, he just went on a big retirement tour, and he dominated. He had a 315, 401, 620 slash line for good for a 1.021 OPS at 40 years old. 38 home runs. He led the league in doubles at 48. He won the Silver Slugger. He was 6th in the MVP. 163 WRC plus for 4.5 F4. 2016 David Ortiz was probably the best 40-year-old season for a hitter we will ever see. I
had some of the same points there on Ortiz, and the one other thing that he led the league in was intentional walks when he was 40 years old. People had that much respect for him as a baseball player, not just as a person.
Yeah.
And yeah, great pick. Okay, I'm gonna stick with the DH kind of type guy, but we're gonna stick him in the outfield.
Let me guess.
That's my right fielder,
Nelson Cruz.
All right. Nelson Cruz, 2016 with Seattle. He was 35 years old. He played in 155 games. He hit 43 home runs that year. That was right in the midst of a stretch of 6 straight seasons where he hit between 37 and 44 home runs. I hadn't even thought about this until today, but he played those 4 seasons in Seattle, and he hit like near 40 home runs in all those seasons, which is amazing for that ballpark, which is, notorious for being super pitcher friendly and not great for home runs. The power is super legit. We still see it today. He's 41 years old and he's got 31 home runs. This has really been the first time in 2021 where he's kind of taken a step back, but he's still better than 95% of the players in the league in terms of his power and just his overall hitting profile. So that's my first outfielder. I'm not going to talk about his defense today.
Yeah, I did. So I texted Gautam before we did this, and I said, if you put Nelson Cruz in right, I'm going to make fun of you. He is so bad at defense. Just go watch his defensive plays in the 2011 World Series. It tells you everything you need to know. No, I love that pick, though. I was actually going to pick a different season from him. I was thinking 2019. Up in Minnesota, where he had 311, 392, 639 slash for a 1.031 OPS with 41 home runs, Silver Slugger, 9th in MVP, 164 WRC plus, and 4.3 F4. So basically, I guess the moral of the story is Nelson Cruz is an old guy baseball player god.
Yeah, and Cruz always he's one of the rare guys that his entire second half of his career has been way better than the first. And that's not how people age normally.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna swerve a little bit. I'm gonna take my catcher now. So catcher is one of those that's really hard to get a guy above 35 years old. The guy I'm picking from 2014 only caught 17 innings that year. It was the first year he was not primarily a catcher, but he did still catch in that season. It is 35-year-old Victor Martinez. Let's see. I can't talk and type at the same time. Hold on. So Victor Martinez in 2014 at 35 years old, slash 335, 409, 565. He hit 32 home runs, which was the most he'd had in a couple years before that and for a couple years after that. Basically, that was the most he had that late in his career. He had 3 steals that season, which he had never stolen more than 1 base in a season, and V-Mart stole 3. He won
not having squat all day. His legs were feeling frisky.
Oh, yeah. He won the Silver Slugger at first base, I think, that year. Second in the MVP, and he put up a 4.5 F4. So that V-Mart season was amazing, and I believe that's the season after Miggy won the Triple Crown out there. So Detroit just had 2 seasons back to back with amazing guys. So
Yeah, that was an awesome duo of V-Mart and Miggy back in those days, and I think Victor Martinez is one of the best like switch hitting catchers ever, and that was an awesome season.
yeah. All right, who is your third pick?
All right, for not my next pick, I'm gonna go to second base, and I gotta get this guy early because he's one of my favorite players.
So it's one of the 2 guys I have on my list, and I think you're going with the one I want.
Okay, my pick is 2019 Howie Kendrick.
Yep, you took him.
With the Washington Nationals. He was 35 years old, and he randomly put up his best career season by a lot of measures, including his triple slash 344, 395, 572. He hit 17 home runs that year in only 370 ABs. So overall, his season's really good. He played first base, second base, and third base for the Nationals that year.
And right.
Part of the reason I picked him is because of his success in the playoffs that year in the Nationals World Series run. So in the division series, he hit a go-ahead grand slam in Game 5, so the deciding game against the Dodgers in the 10th inning. So they won that deciding game. Then he won the NLCS MVP against the Cardinals in that series. And then he hit the go-ahead home run in Game 7 of the World Series off the right field foul pole in the 7th inning off Will Harris. So he basically had 2 deciding game home runs that gave his team the lead, not to mention winning the MVP of the championship series. So it was a remarkable postseason and just like a storybook kind of season for Howie Kendrick, who really had a really good career, but that season just completely stands out as being way above the rest of them.
Well, and Howie Kendrick is one of those Clubhouse favorite guys too. And the funny part is he wasn't even the heart and soul of that team. You know who was?
Baby Shark. Baby Shark.
Yeah. Baby Shark.
Yeah. That was a fun team, and I think we're gonna look back at that as being the year that Juan Soto kind of jumped on the national stage as being a superstar player, and then all the contributions they got from the old guys like Parra, Howie Kendrick, Ryan Zimmerman. That was just a really good World Series team.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where do I want to go next? Do I want to go outfield or do I want to go pitcher? Relief pitcher specifically.
I don't know.
I don't either. All right, I think I'm gonna go out to center field. The guy I'm picking, this is the first year that he wasn't in center predominantly, but he did play in center for I think maybe a third of his games. I am taking 2014 Jason Wirth for the Washington Nationals. So at 35 years old, Jason Wirth had a 292, 394, 455 slash line, which his 849 OPS was good for a 134 OPS plus. He hit 16 home runs that season, 37 doubles. He walked 13.2% of the time. He had his second lowest strikeout percentage of his career at 18%. All good for a 141 WRC plus. And he put up 5.3 F4 because Jason Wirth was also a really good defender. So I think that's probably... that's up there for me in like seasons that I've watched that stand out to me. Like Jason Wirth is he's from my hometown too, or from the town next door to my hometown. So always a little partial to Jason Wirth there. And he just had a phenomenal season in 14.
Yeah, and that's a great segue actually from Kendrick. So Wirth was definitely one of the players, along with Bryce Harper, who kind of brought that organization from being really bad to really relevant and making the postseason basically every year. Obviously, Harper and Wirth didn't win the World Series with the Nationals, but they kind of set the foundation for the team becoming good. And yeah, that was an amazing season by Wirth. The one thing that I noticed is that that was really the last year he was good when he was 35,
Yep.
because he basically completely just did not ever get back to that level or anywhere close. I think the next year he was basically below replacement level. So
Yeah.
um,
And that's
that
a
was
pretty common thing for guys on this, at least guys that I found that are in my thing here. A lot of them 35, 36 tends to be their last good season. So these guys that are making it to 40 and are on this list, those are the real deal.
yeah,
So,
and that cliff can come at any point. You just never know when it's going to be. And with Worth, it was extra extreme because he had such a good season right before he became really not good.
yeah.
Okay, I'll make my second pick from the outfield. Um, Similar reasons as Kendrick because of this guy's postseason success, and that's 2016 Ben Zobrist with the Cubs. So Zobrist played all around the field. He played second base. He played left field. He played left field in the World Series. He scored 94 runs that season. He hit 272, 386 on base percentage, 446 slug. He that wasn't his best defensive season, but he had some really good defensive seasons. That was the first year he joined the Cubs um, on a 4-year contract, and his kind of contact ability was something that was different than the rest of the Cubs players that were really power focused, and definitely not having Zobrist in 1920 and beyond is something that the Cubs lineup has missed a lot, and that's probably part of the reason that they saw the decline that they did. Uh, and then he won the World Series MVP, and he had the big hit in the 10th inning of the Game 7 of the World Series in 16 that gave the Cubs the lead. So that's why Ben Zobrist on my team.
Yeah, I hate you because you took both of my second basemen. Um, so
Oops.
now I got to figure out what the heck I'm gonna do. Um, yeah, no, Ben Zobrist, I like that pick a lot. So I think he put up a 4.0
4.0.
F4 in that season too. So that just great pick there. Shoot. Let's see. All right, I have my second baseman now. Cool, we're good. But that's not where I'm going next. Let me pick somewhere where you haven't been. I'm going to go ahead and take a relief pitcher now. So, my relief pitcher, 38 years old, from the Boston Red Sox, going with 2013 Koji Uehara.
Oh yeah, that was going to be my first pick, but I have a second pick.
Yeah, I think your second pick is probably the same as mine, and it's probably equally amazing. So Koji Uehara, 38 years old, 74 and 1/3 innings pitched, for a 1.09 ERA, a .565 WHIP, 101 strikeouts, and he put up 21 saves on the season for a 3.1 FWAR as a closer for the World Series champion Boston Red Sox.
And I believe he closed out the World Series too.
I
And
believe he did.
13 2/3 innings in the postseason for a .66 ERA. So
Jesus.
incredible stuff. And he was 38.
Yeah, and then he pitched for another like 2 or 3 years after that. He was not very
Yeah.
good. I think he finished his career with the Cubs, didn't he?
He had a really good like first half of the season in 2017, I think, with the Cubs. But overall, he had a really good career for starting so late in MLB. But
Yeah.
definitely a solid pick there. I'll take my reliever here too. It's 2012 Fernando Rodney, who is 35 with the Rays. His numbers are unlikely to be. Well, there was that one season by Zach Britton where he had that really low ERA, but this one for Rodney was a .60 ERA in 74 and 2/3 innings. So he only gave up 5 earned runs all season, and he had 48 saves, and his hat was to the left the whole time. So that's my relief pitcher.
Yeah, I love that pick. So Fernando Rodney actually finished 5th in the Cy Young that year as well. So he got a lot of recognition for being that amazing. And ironically, he threw 1/3 of an inning more than 2013 Koji Uehara. So he threw 74 and 2/3 innings. So
yeah,
he's got the longevity. He's the better pitcher. All right, let's see here. I think there's so many good options at starting pitcher. I don't even need to go there yet. So I'm going to go to shortstop. And this is the one that I texted you earlier. I think you're going to like this one because I don't think this guy would have been on your radar. I am going with 2014 Juan Uribe. So Juan Uribe was 35 years old in 2014. He slashed 311, 337, 440, which was one of his best slash lines late in his career. 777 OPS. Only 9 home runs. He was not a very big power guy. He was more of a light hitting, get on base type of guy. But really, he was defensive first. He had a lot of seasons where offensively he was not worth hardly anything. But randomly at 35 years old, he came back and put up a 3.4 FWAR season with a 122 WRC plus. So, and shortstop is one of those that usually when you age, if you're a shortstop, you move to second, you move to first, you go somewhere that's a little less taxing. So it's really hard to get someone in that 35 or up range.
Yep, definitely agree. And I'll make my shortstop pick here too. Just to add on to that point you're making about there not being a lot of options at old shortstop, because the two guys I was deciding between were 2014 Jimmy Rollins and 2012 Derek Jeter. I think I'm going to go with Jimmy Rollins because he was an elite shortstop defender for a long time.
How old was Rollins?
He was 35. That team was actually very interesting in that they had a huge reliance on old dudes. They weren't good at all. They finished in 5th place in the division, but they had Carlos Ruiz, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins as 35-year-olds, 34-year-old Ryan Howard, and 36-year-old Marlon Byrd, all as starting players that year. Rollins, his numbers defensively in terms of the defensive WAR component looked pretty good. They weren't at his old levels, but he still was a positive defender. His offensive season, also a big step back from the Jimmy Rollins people came to know and love in Philly as part of their World Series team. But he still put up 17 home runs and good season for a 35-year-old playing shortstop. Definitely something to keep in mind as we see all these big shortstops that are going to be signing free agent contracts. We wouldn't really expect a lot of these guys to be shortstops by the end of their deals, and if they are, I don't. Do you think there's a shortstop that could stick at shortstop for the next 5+ years in this class?
My best guess would be Lindor, but I don't know. So even if they could, I don't know if they would, I guess is the main thing, because there's going to be all these young players coming up that are probably going to be even better shortstops.
Yeah.
So it's like,
so then you move the really good old shortstop to second base, and then he becomes pretty good there.
Yeah. And he could be almost more elite because it's a less physically taxing position. But granted, I don't think it's that much less physically taxing. But
yeah, but it's definitely less demanding than shortstop, I think. But Jeter and Rollins are are interesting here because they were both kind of the franchise guys, and maybe that's why they got more leeway to stick at shortstop even past their primes there.
Yeah, and so the reason why I went with Juan Uribe over Derek Jeter, because 2012 Jeter was my other guy I was looking at, is purely because Juan Uribe's defensive prowess never really fell off. They did shift him to third base. I think maybe in it might have been 2014 or 2015, they shifted him to third, but he was still a really, really good defensive third baseman too. So it just made it a lot easier for me to stomach that. Granted, Jeter is an all-time great. I do find it funny that neither one of us went with him. But
yeah, I mean, it was a fine season for sure, and he was 38. So
yeah, so and I did put age into account with some of mine, trying to get the older guys, even if there were better years, just because I mean that's the whole point of this. I think I'm gonna go back to my outfield. And I think I might have the age wrong on this season because I was going back and forth on 2 different seasons for him. So give me one moment to make sure that I have the right. Okay, 2012. No, I was right. Cool. So my right fielder is 2012 Torrey Hunter. So this was Torrey Hunter's last year in Los Angeles. He put up a 313, 365, 451 slash line for an 817 OPS, 16 home runs, a 131 WRC plus for 4.7 F4. So he actually had a better, so he actually received the Silver Slugger and low ballot MVP votes the next year in 2013. But if you look at his numbers were actually better in 2012. 2013, he was over in Detroit. So yeah, and Torrey Hunter, I always thought was just a really good player his entire career. And he never really fell off when he got older. I mean, he did, but not to the same extreme that most players do. And Torrey played until, 40 years old at like 2015 or something?
Yep. When he returned to Minnesota. And I never thought about this before, but he probably imparted many lessons to a young Mike Trout back in 2012 and 2011.
Ooh, that's a good point. Forgot about that. Okay. So you got any...
He had a great career and a great season there too. And he played a full season in 2015, even when he was 39 there. So he had a good, healthy 19-year career.
Yeah.
Okay, I will go in the direction you probably would not have seen coming. I didn't even see this coming, but I'm going to go with it for my last outfield spot. 2019 Brett Gardner as my center fielder.
Did not see that coming, no.
Exactly. I didn't really see it either, but then I kind of looked into the season. And
is he 81
Gardner,
years old in 2019?
He was 35, actually. He played center field that year, and he is the only center fielder that has put up a 3-WAR season that's been over 35 in the last decade.
Dang.
And that's pretty amazing. I was looking at 2021, and Lorenzo Kane has actually been the best center field defender of 35-plus-year-old guys in the last decade. And he's only played like half a season, which is pretty amazing that he's kept that up. But Gardner also did it with a bat, and he kind of had a career season power-wise. I think he had his career high in home runs that year, and he was a big part of that team being really good. Obviously, they lost to the Astros in the championship series, but
yeah. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and in the same way you were saying Torrey Hunter imparted some knowledge on a young Mike Trout, guessing Brett Gardner probably did on a young Aaron Judge.
Well, he still can now, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm going to guess that Judge is probably not taking quite as many lessons from Gardner at this point.
I was going to say, like, what can Brett Gardner really teach Aaron Judge? Like Aaron Judge knows
where the
every
bathroom
needs to
is?
know about
I don't
hitting
know.
the ball. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to teach height, okay?
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting pick. I like that pick. I would not have gone there. I think so I actually got both of my center field options because Torrey Hunter was my backup there. So I didn't even think of Brett Gardner. The other guy that I honorable mention could have been center or right field was 2013 Carlos Beltran.
I had 2012 Beltran on my list as well.
Yeah, I was torn on which year to. Oh yeah, I think 12 is actually the one I've got his stats up here for. Yeah, 2012 Beltran, but really 12, 13 Beltran, both really, really good seasons. Won't dive into them, but go look them up. They were fantastic. And he was the best player in the Cardinals for those 2 years. So, let's see here. Do I go ahead and just finish up the outfield? I'll go ahead and finish up the outfield. I think you're going to like my left fielder. He was probably my favorite left fielder in the show 19, I think.
Oh, I know where you're going. I was thinking this when I was doing the research.
Do you know where I'm going with this? Where am I going with this?
I know exactly where you're going. MLB The Show 18 legend Shin-Soo Choo.
I am going with 2018 Shin-Soo Choo. Shin-Soo Choo was 35 years old in 2018, and it's not the most astounding statistical year that you will have ever seen. Surprisingly, left field has less like amazing seasons than right and center for old guys, which you would think your old power hitters, you'd toss them out and left, but oh well. But anyway, Shin-Soo Choo slash 264, 377, 434 for an 810 OPS, 21 home runs. He walked 13.8% of the time for a 117 WRC plus and 2.3 F4. So he was on base quite a bit for having a low average in the 260s. Didn't have the power numbers that a lot of left fielders usually have. The other guy I was looking at was actually 2016 Jose Bautista, which I really wish that he was 1 year older than he actually is, because then I could have gone with 15 Bautista, and that would have been awesome. But yeah, so Choo and Bautista actually had pretty similar 35-year-old seasons. But I think Shin-Soo Choo is getting mine. Just he was a little bit better defensively than Joey Bats, which is not saying much, but you know.
Yeah, like that pick. And Choo was a really good player, and I'm sad that he doesn't play in MLB anymore.
Yeah, although he is still playing baseball.
Correct.
Is he in the KBO or NPB?
He's playing the KBO for the first time in his career. He's the highest paid player in KBO history.
Nice.
Okay. I'm going to make my starting pitcher pick here. And it's going to be Justin Verlander.
2019?
2018.
2018?
So 2018 was Verlander's first year with the Astros, first full year with the Astros. He went 214 innings that year. He had a 2.52 ERA. I guess this season and 2019 are like honestly really close. There's no wrong choice there, but I'll go with 2018 for Verlander.
Cool. Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I was actually looking at 19 Verlander specifically because, well, one, he got the Cy Young, and two, he actually racked up 300 strikeouts. So I just really liked that number. It would be fun to watch on a old guy World Series team. So, yeah, no, I love that Verlander pick, though. He is him, and then my starting pitcher, which I guess I'll go ahead and do now. My guy's not done with the season. Is that cheating?
No, you're good.
All right, I'm going with 2021 Max Scherzer. So both Verlander and Scherzer are amazing here late in their careers. Justin Verlander obviously out this year with the Tommy John. But him and Scherzer just keep seeming to get better. Scherzer this year has a 2.08 ERA, 226 strikeouts, only 169 innings pitched, which is so far this year, which is kind of low for him. But he's got a .811 whip, and he's the likely Cy Young this year with 5.5 F4 so far. He's probably going to get 2, maybe 3 more regular season starts. And then probably 2 if they rest him for a wild card game. Does that sound?
Yeah, he's been absolutely dominant. We might be looking back on that trade by the Dodgers as being one of the biggest trade deadline acquisitions ever, because they've won all 9 of the games he's pitched. He's given up 5 earned runs in 58 innings. It's just been absurd.
Well, and not to mention they got Trey Turner with him.
Oh yeah, and just one of the best shortstops in the league.
Yeah, and secondary, and they gave up a big part of their future probably in Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray, but they've got more guys in the pipe, so that is an amazing trade. And I getting Scherzer in the second half of what is probably his best career year ever. It's just amazing to me that they pulled that off.
Yeah.
So. All right, so you need a catcher and a first baseman, and I need a second baseman and a third baseman.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take. I'll take my catcher first, I guess. It's AJ Perzinski.
Which year?
In 2012, when he was 35 years old. He hit his career high in home runs that year. It was his last year with the White Sox before he played for a few other teams. He did have some nice late career seasons, but this one was probably one of his best seasons ever. And so, like I said, he hit the 27 home runs when his previous career high was only 18. 119 WRC plus, which is absurdly good for a catcher. He played a lot of games behind the plate. Played 135 games that season, and he won the Silver Slugger. So AJ Perzinski it is.
I like that pick. AJ Perzinski I think he was always really underrated. He was just an incredibly good catcher. A lot of similarities, career numbers wise, to Yadier, or to where Yadier Molina is now. And so I know what your opinion on Yadier Molina is, but for a lot of people that think that he's and I mean, you probably still think he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame, whether he deserves to or not, different question. But AJ Pierzynski is right there statistically with Yadi, and there's a lot of people that think Yadi's a surefire Hall of Famer. I think Pierzynski, I'm not really sure where his narrative falls off. Maybe that he was kind of a journeyman guy. I don't know, but he was really, really good for and had a pretty lengthy career. So, all right, I'm gonna go with third base now. I think I did a better job here looking at the numbers at picking actual old guys. You only picked one guy older than 35, and I'm about to have my
so many good age 35 seasons that I couldn't find anything beyond that for the most part. Actually, my last guy's not 35, so
half my team is over the age of 35, and 30% is over the age of 38. So I am going with 2012 Chipper Jones, third base. So not the best year he ever had. And there's probably been better old guy seasons, but Chipper Jones in 2014, he was 40 years old. It was his retirement tour. Slashed 287, 377, 455. He had 14 home runs, 23 doubles. He was still at a 127 WRC plus and 2.6 F4 at 40 years old. Just it's astounding to me just how good he was throughout his career, that in one of his down years from being old and decrepit, he was still amazing. When old and decrepit is amazing,
How many more years did he play after that?
None. He retired in
Oh,
2012.
that was his last year.
That was
So
his last year.
going out on top, just like Poppy.
Yep. Then I got both of them. Woo.
You did. So I'll take my first baseman to close things out. It's 2021 Joey Votto. I'm not sure if this is the best pick, but this is definitely the pick that I want to make because
37?
37-year-old Joey Votto. So he's having a very resurgent season after a couple down years. He's rededicated himself to the power like we've talked about many times on this podcast this year, actually. But I just wanted to say, I was thinking about the Hall of Fame question for Votto, and I think I would say he should make the Hall of Fame just because he represents the modern player and the approach to the game. And he has a career 300, 400, 500 slash line. And there's only 19 players in MLB history with over 5,000 at-bats that have that achieved. He may dip under 300 batting average in the next few years if he keeps just trying to hit home runs. But basically, most of the guys that are in that club are all Hall of Famers. So I don't see why Votto should be any different just because he doesn't have as many hits or some of those big round number milestones that people used to look for a lot in Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and I think you and I were actually talking about Joey Votto's Joey Votto's Hall of Fame case a couple weeks ago, weren't we? And I think we were both kind of a little bit on the fence just based on historically how you get into the Hall. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Joey Votto is one of those guys that he's similar to what John Morosi said about Adam Wainwright, where, like, yeah, he doesn't have the gaudy counting stats, but he is like the epitome of this era of baseball. So being able to adapt and become a different player to be what your team needs you to be every year. Joey Votto has been able to change his swing like 4 different times to do 4 different things. He was a contact guy. He's a power guy. At one point, he was just a doubles machine, just trying to hit it in the gap. He had a season where he walked like 8 bazillion% of the time. And so being able to do that, I think, is just Hall of Fame worthy on its own because he's good at all of the things. He's just tailoring his swing to do a different thing each year. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Votto deserves to be in. All right, so my final pick, and this one, there's zero prep for me here because Gautam took both of my second basemen, so I am taking, which season was it? I am taking 2014 Chase Utley. I believe he was 35 years old in that season. So Chase Utley at 35 years old put up a 270, 339, 407 slash, 11 home runs. So he wasn't really a big power guy. He did walk 8% of the time, which was pretty much a little lower than career average, but his career average was inflated by 4 seasons above 12 or 4 seasons above 11%. But Chase Utley was just an all-around good player throughout his career. He still had a positive defensive value in 2014, 3.7 WAR. So I think right off the cuff, I think he's going to be my second baseman to round off our elder statesman lineups.
Yeah, my squad is like youthful compared to yours.
Oh yeah.
But
yes, it is.
Yeah, this is fun though.
It was. I really like these lineups here. I'm curious what you guys listening think of our lineups here. So I'll post them on our social medias so that you could actually look into them a little bit more and see the players we picked. But I'd be curious to what you guys think. So let us know in the comments or on Facebook or Twitter, and let us know if we missed anybody. Yes, Derek Jeter's not on the list, so I imagine that someone's going to point that out.
He made the Hall of Fame. He'll be okay.
That's a good point. He made the Hall of Fame. He'll be okay. And I don't think he got any of his rings after 35 years old. So, yeah. Yeah. So this was fun. I like doing things like this. We should do this a little bit more. Yeah. So that is all we've got for you guys tonight. So thank you very much for joining us. Once again, if you enjoy our podcast or any of our other content, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms you use, so that you never miss an episode. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook at Getaway Day Pod. Facebook has been changed so that they match, so it's at Getaway Day Pod for both. Let's see. I think I'm probably going to do some more baseball cards soon, so be on the lookout for those, because I've got some interesting stuff that I want to open on the channel. Let's see. I think that's it. So have fun watching some more September baseball. The wild card race is getting insane. A little less insane now in the NL, but still going strong in the AL. So I think with that, we're out.
Peace.